Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 32 male, recently ended an 11-year relationship with my ex-girlfriend Laura, 31 female, after discovering she was cheating on me. I thought breaking up would be the end of it, but Laura's actions since have been so wild and entitled that I'm questioning my own sanity. Let me give you the full story. Laura and I met in college and started dating when we were in our early 20s. At first, it was great. She was funny, kind, and seemed to genuinely care about me. We had similar interests, and I thought we were building something long-term together. Over the years, I worked hard to create a stable life for both of us. While I'm not rich, I've always been financially stable and willing to share what I had. Laura, on the other hand, had a hard time finding her footing career-wise. She went through several part-time jobs, freelancing gigs, and periods of unemployment. She wasn't lazy, but she lacked consistency, and I wanted to support her. I covered most of the bills, rent, utilities, groceries, you name it, I paid for it. I ensured she had a comfortable life. I took care of the house, made sure it was a nice place to live, and provided for my 2 dogs who were like family to me. I spoiled her a bit. Hair and nail appointments, regular date nights, and even a couple of vacations each year. I never pressured her about money. While she contributed here and there, most of her income went toward her personal expenses, and I never complained. For 11 years, I believed I was building a future with someone who appreciated what I did for her. I loved her and thought she loved me too. But the last few months of our relationship revealed how wrong I was. It all started with little things. Laura became glued to her phone, constantly texting someone and laughing at her screen. She started going out more often, claiming she was meeting up with her friends, but she always avoided giving me specifics. She also became distant, less affectionate, less engaged in conversations, and less interested in spending time together. At first, I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was stressed, or maybe I was overthinking things. But then, one night, she left her phone unlocked on the couch while she went to the bathroom. I know it's not right to invade someone's privacy, but my gut was screaming that something was wrong. I looked, and there it was, a long string of messages between her and a guy named Kevin. The texts weren't just friendly, they were explicit. They talked about meeting up, how much they missed each other, and things I won't repeat here. I was devastated. The worst part was that I knew Kevin. He was my friend's brother. And even more shocking was that Kevin was unemployed, living with his parents, and didn't even have a car. Meanwhile, I'd been working my butt off to give Laura a good life, and she was sneaking around with someone who couldn't even afford a meal at McDonald's. I confronted Laura that night. At first, she denied everything. "He's just a friend," she insisted, despite the clear evidence to the contrary. When I didn't back down, she changed tactics. "You've been so distant lately. I didn't feel loved anymore." Not a shred of remorse, no apology, just excuses. That was the breaking point. I told her we were done, and she needed to move out. At first, she seemed stunned, like she didn't think I'd actually leave. But once the reality sank in, the entitlement began to show. Here's where things get crazy. After I told her to leave, Laura argued that I was being unfair by kicking her out. She claimed, 1, I should move out and keep paying the bills, since I had family nearby and she didn't. She said it would be easier for me to relocate. She wanted me to leave my own apartment, which I pay for, so she and Kevin could have a place to live. She also expected me to keep covering the rent and utilities until they got on their feet. 2, she should keep the dogs. My dogs, who I've had since before we met, are like my kids. Laura argued that they loved her more and would be happier staying with her. She said I could only visit them if I got Kevin's permission. Oh, and I'd still need to pay for their food and their vet bills. I told her in no uncertain terms that none of that was happening. I gave her a week to pack her things and leave. The dog stayed with me, no discussion. That's when she got angry, really angry. A few weeks after Laura moved out, I found out she'd quit her job. She claimed that relocating made it impossible for her to continue working. Then, she tried to sue me for lost wages, arguing that I had forced her to quit by making her leave the apartment. The lawsuit was laughable. We weren't married, and I didn't owe her a dime. My lawyer easily got the case dismissed. But instead of cutting her losses, Laura decided to escalate things. Since the lawsuit didn't work, Laura targeted my job. She contacted my employer, claiming that my actions had ruined her life and demanding they pay her $100,000 to settle out of court. For context, Laura didn't even make close to that amount in a year at her job. My employer wasn't having it. Instead of entertaining her demands, they filed harassment charges against her. At this point, I thought she'd finally back off. I was wrong. When the legal route didn't pan out, Laura turned her attention to my family. She messaged every single relative she could find on social media, telling them I had ruined her life out of spite and begging them for money to help her get back on her feet. She claimed I'd left her homeless and penniless and framed herself as the victim in all of this. Thankfully, my family saw right through her lies. Most of them blocked her immediately, but that didn't stop her from trying one more thing. Laura took her story to social media, posting tearful videos and setting up a Cash App account for donations. She claimed she was a victim of domestic violence, a blatant lie, and needed money to escape her abusive ex. Some people actually sent her money, but it wasn't enough to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown used to. Kevin, as far as I know, is still unemployed, so their situation hasn't improved. I've spent weeks replaying everything in my head, wondering if I handled things the right way. For over a decade, I supported Laura financially and emotionally. I gave her everything I could, and she threw it all away for a guy who can't even afford a bus ticket. And yet, she still seems to think I owe her something. We weren't married. We don't have kids. I owe her nothing. But her entitlement is so extreme that she genuinely seems shocked that I won't bankroll her new relationship. Cutting her off was the best decision I've ever made, but part of me still wonders if I could have avoided some of the fallout. Am I the a-hole? Laura's entitlement is staggering. She cheats on OP, then expects OP to pay for her and her new boyfriend's life? Absolutely not. The fact that she tried to sue OP, harassed OP's workplace, and manipulated OP's family shows how toxic she is. I just don't understand how OP didn't see it in 11 years. OP did the right thing by cutting her off. He needs to block her everywhere and move on. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. The audacity of this woman is mind-blowing. She had a good life with you, and she ruined it. Now she expects you to keep supporting her? Absolutely not. You don't owe her anything. Good for you for keeping your dogs and standing your ground. As a fellow dog lover, I'm so glad you kept your pups. Laura's behavior is unhinged, and her attempts to manipulate everyone around you are pathetic. You've been more than generous for 11 years. Don't let her guilt you into anything. Move on and enjoy your new peace. Not the a-hole. Laura played stupid games and is now winning stupid prizes. She cheated, lied, and then had the nerve to demand your money and home? You've done everything right by cutting her off. Let her and Kevin figure out their mess. They're not your problem anymore. My dad has 2 siblings, one of which is my entitled aunt, which we will call EA. So, about a year back, my grandma and granddad passed away, Dad's parents, leaving everything to be inherited by their 3 children and their respective families. So, we all came to an agreement as a whole family that we will wait a long while before even setting foot in the house, because my grandpa and granddad were a big part of our family life. Everything was going okay for a few weeks, until my entitled aunt decided that she wanted to clear out the house to sell it for money. Entitled aunt decided that she would take all of the things inside the house, including some furniture like sofas, tables, etc., back to her house and sort them out. From there, her family, my uncle and 2 cousins, took what they wanted to keep from my grandma and granddad's belongings. They then called my other uncle, Dad's other sibling, and allowed his family to get what they wanted as keepsakes. Then called us a week later to come and choose one thing each. Bear in mind that they all got a lot of things to keep. We were furious and originally refused to come and take anything because the time wasn't right, as they'd only just passed away. My dad was furious and had multiple arguments with my entitled aunt and entitled uncle about respect for his parents. My entitled aunt then proceeded to guilt-trip my dad for weeks, telling him he never even cared about his parents, which was completely wrong because my dad was completely devoted to my grandma and granddad and was distraught when they passed. Eventually, after a couple of months, we decided to go and collect some of my grandma and granddad's belongings as keepsakes to help our family grieve. My entitled aunt refused to let us in the house, calling us rude and disrespectful, and saying we don't deserve the luxury of having our own family's belongings. Eventually, we got to keep some things as keepsakes, after a long argument in front of the whole of my aunt's street. But this was only the beginning. A few weeks after this, we found out that my entitled aunt was renovating the house my grandma and granddad lived in, so that her daughter, entitled cousin, and her fiancé could live in it. She refused to let us near the property, claiming it as her own, and every time we reached out to entitled cousin, she ignored our calls and messages, until entitled aunt told us to leave them alone, because the house is none of their business. Around this time, we also found out that entitled aunt had seized my grandma and granddad's bank account details, and had full access to all of the money that was in the account. The will stated that the money would be shared between the three of the siblings, my dad, entitled aunt, and my other uncle. But entitled aunt wanted it all to herself, which was no surprise considering how she had been acting. My dad wasn't even angry, he was just destroyed. He was being made to watch my entitled aunt destroy the beautiful legacy of my grandma and granddad, all because of her greed. Weeks went by, and my dad decided he wanted to get some kind of revenge on my entitled aunt. My dad is a builder and owns his own building company. A year or so before the passing of my grandparents happened, my dad carried out a roof renovation and garage conversion on my entitled aunt's house, one which he didn't make them pay any money for. He did it out of the goodness of his heart, for his family. My dad decided, after the way my entitled aunt and uncle had been acting, that he wanted his money for the roof renovation, and my entitled aunt flipped at him, calling him selfish and threatening to take him to court, calling him a cowboy builder, which means he just wants the money and did a terrible job, which he didn't. This destroyed our family for weeks and caused a long chain of fights which mostly consisted of my entitled aunt refusing to pay. This is when my entitled uncle really gets involved. This is a guy who isn't even related to my grandparents by blood. He's just married into the family. My entitled uncle gets on the phone and tells my dad that he will come to our house and beat my dad to a pulp for being so selfish and heartless during this painful time for my entitled aunt. At this point, my whole family is furious. My entitled uncle is clearly out of line, and my entitled aunt is twisting this entire thing, which is destroying my dad, who is just trying to mourn the loss of his parents. This was the breaking point for my dad's relationship with his sister, entitled aunt, and the whole thing ended with my dad telling entitled aunt that he will take her to court for the way her and my entitled uncle have acted. After this whole thing, we received many malicious messages from their family and have completely disassociated ourselves from them. I haven't spoken to them since this happened, and we all prefer to keep it that way. This situation put my dad in an extremely dark place, and it still gets him down. Since then, we have seen entitled aunt and entitled uncle around town and at family events, and they've been quite hostile to us. One time, entitled uncle barged into my sister and said some really rude things to me whilst we were out in our town. Safe to say, both my mom and dad were furious. Since then, we haven't seen them though, and they've become irrelevant to our lives. I'd say I miss them, but I know I miss the old version of them, one which is long gone. Take her to court. She's technically stealing, as the money was supposed to be divided between the three families, right? If she comes back to bother us anymore, I imagine that's exactly what my dad will do. It's been 9 years since I've seen my uncle and his wife, who will be henceforth known as Uncle and Ice Witch, as that is what I call them. This was the end of May 2010. I was just finishing my first year at my community college when everything took place. To be more specific, it was final exam week. The Sunday before finals week started, I was at the mall taking a well-deserved break from studying math when I get a call from my mom. Basically, I had to get home immediately because Uncle had called, and they, and his two 30-something children, were 2 hours from arriving at my house. This was a bit of a surprise, as we lived in Florida while the rest of them were in California, New Jersey, and Connecticut. 2 hours was all the warning we had that we were about to be invaded. Over the phone, my mom said she had pleaded with them to not come, or at least to stay in a hotel, as I still had school. She was told that family came first, and besides, I was going to drop out anyway, like the rest of them. I rushed home and started cleaning. My room had to be cleaned out of anything not baby-proofed, as my cousin was with his wife and toddler son. For the record, both cousins had no idea that we were in the dark about them coming. They are amazing people, and their kids have grown up to be wonderful as well. They are innocent in this. Most of my stuff ended up in some plastic containers that we put in the garage. This consisted of all my manga, some personal favorite books, statues, posters, my gaming system, etc. Basically items of value. It's not that I didn't trust my cousins. I wanted to hide them from the Ice Witch. You'll see why. Uncle and Ice Witch arrived first. Mom had left to get my cousins from the airport, so I was all alone in the house waiting. I opened the door, and the first thing I hear is, "See, I told you she wasn't studying. She should just drop out." If my uncle had said that, I'd blow him off. But this was the Ice Witch. She broke up my uncle's marriage. She made him almost miss his son's wedding because my cousin-in-law is Hindu. She had told my mother again and again that all my occult items, anime, would lead me to worship the devil. She made it a nightmare to even speak to my uncle. She had thrown away so many Christmas gifts I'd sent to my uncle simply because she was a Jehovah's Witness and they would not be allowed in her house. No hate to any Jehovah's Witnesses. Sorry you may have had to deal with this woman. Me. Still not a dropout, just here to let you people into my house. Ice Witch. Excuse me? Me. Does it ever occur to you people that I'm 18 and I might have exams? If I was still in high school, I'd have classes. Your poor planning is going to screw up my next week. Ice Witch proceeds to start screaming that I'm an ungrateful child, that I have no right to talk to them, that my attitude is all my dead father's fault. Me. Yeah, right. My Disney-loving Air Force vet, softball-playing father, who died of cancer, was the reason I have an attitude. No, that would be my Disney-loving Monty Python and Beatles-worshipping Veterans Affairs worker mother, who has busted her butt for years to bring me up. No thanks to you doing everything in your power to keep me from having another connection to my mom's side of the family. Have you gone to a hotel yet? I have studying to do. I stormed back inside. Mom pulled up about 2 minutes later, and the Ice Witch unloaded on her. Mom's response? She's 18. She can say what she wants in my house. Besides, we weren't the ones who made reunion plans and told the entire damn family, without telling the host first. Now, stop squawking like a harpy and let's get inside. My neighbors didn't pay to see the whole 30-minute argument. Over the next 3 days, per my mom, because she wanted to see me succeed, thanks so very much, I did all I could to stay away from the house. I studied at school, did my exams, and basically hid out until dinner rolled around, which was when I was expected at home on a normal day. While I did great on most of my exams, the only one I had trouble was on my math, which had never been my strong suit. I lost valuable study time to constant interruptions via text, as the Ice Witch would take my mom's phone and text me an SOS, which would make me stop studying to call home to make sure all was okay, just to get lectured. Mom put a stop to it, but the damage was done. After my last exam, I called my mom with the good news that I'd aced my Creative Writing 1 class. She said that everyone except the Ice Witch was about to head out to the beach, and I was invited. I said no, I was going to head to the bookstore and treat myself to a couple of good books, then head home. While at the bookstore, I picked up some manga and about 5 pro-LGBT YA novels. The Ice Witch had spent the previous evening telling the entire family that I would be going to hell, since she found one of my little statues in the garage, and it was of a girl. Therefore, I was a lesbian and going to hell. I'm bi, but who the hell cares? Also, the damn statue was of Edward Elric of FMA, not a damn girl. Everyone but my uncle told her to can it, as little toddlers listen, and little cousin was already speaking and repeating things. 18 months old at the time and was able to count to 20 in English, Spanish, and Hindi, from any point up to 15. He's now 11 and a smart aleck. I'm so proud. I'm not above a bit of petty revenge, and besides, I wanted to read them anyway. As I was leaving, I decided to spontaneously head out to the beach and join the rest of the family. Yes, I was in jeans and a t-shirt, but I wanted to spend time with the family that I actually liked, and I wasn't mad at. When we got home, the Ice Witch was all bent out of shape because I didn't stick to my word, changing my plans without considering her, and most importantly, she wanted to talk to me about being all this trash in the garage. But don't worry, she took care of it for me. Now, I'd like to say here that I exploded. I didn't. I froze. The stuff we packed up in the garage? Probably $2,000. Some stuff I brought home from a trip to Japan the previous year. I had a SNES and some rare games. My first console from 1995, which was enjoyed equally by my dad. Plus, my brand new PlayStation 3. I was a late adopter. Yeah, I was kind of in shock. No, instead of me going into a tizzy, my mom took care of it. She walked up to the ice witch and calmly said something. I hope you really didn't touch OP's things. She's worked hard to find something she loves. But if you did, please give her what the market value for her possessions is. But regardless, get the duck out of my house. Mom didn't swear, not like that, and especially never in front of someone under 10. She also valued family, as our little branch of the family is the black sheep of a rather decent-sized one in New Jersey. But what the ice witch forgot, and still forgets, was that while Mom would love to be with our family, she had one more important thing on her mind: her daughter, me. Because when my dad died, it was just us. When I struggled in school, she fought for me. When she got sick, exhaustion, I stepped up to the plate and took over her duties in the rec softball league I played for, and she was on the board of directors. We were a team against everyone. The ice witch turned tail and fled to the guest room. I ran for the garage. All of my things were shoved in trash bags inside the trash cans. Luckily, nothing was outright broken. Only a broken game case and a few torn covers on some manga, which I was okay with, since I was already planning on passing it on anyways. My cousins helped me carefully repack the items that weren't toddler-friendly into the storage containers, and helped bring the books inside. Uncle was trying to reason with my mom, telling her that I was the rude one. I was the one who was being punished. Mom pointed out that punishment in her house was shutting off the Wi-Fi and password locking the TV. Worst case would be taking the power cable to my PS3. She never threw away the things I valued, because that wasn't punishment. That would be cruel in her eyes. Uncle and Ice Witch went to a hotel. The rest of us spent a quiet night at home, sharing memories, playing games on the PS3, and just resting. The cousins had decided to not take sides, but both privately made sure I was okay. They still had a relationship with their dad, but their stepmom was not part of the package. Actually, to this day they only call her by her first name to her face, and elsewhere they have adopted my name from here, away from the kids of course. After all was said and done, and everyone was safely in their own states, Mom got a series of emails, all from the Ice Witch. They started with false apologies and bogus explanations. Mom didn't reply to them. The final one, which is what broke the family, was where she flat out told Mom that she would have ended the pregnancy with me, or barring that, once Dad passed away and I got my attitude, Mom should have drowned me. Mom called my uncle. With my permission, she told him what a year after my dad died, in the midst of a depression, I contemplated suicide in the manner that the Ice Witch emailed. I didn't go through with it, obviously, and could credit anime for my survival. FMA Episode 3, Mother. Saw it on a rerun the night things got dark. I realized that people had it worse and I could be stronger. Mom told Uncle that the Ice Witch was never to contact us again. As long as he remained married to her, he wasn't welcome in our home. Like I said at the top, it's been 9 years. I'm now 28, college graduate with a degree in creative writing, hence the novella. Working on my first book, as well as a short story and poetry collection. We haven't spoken to Uncle or the Ice Witch since that day. Only thing I regret is that I never got my petty revenge with the LGBT books. But they were great to read, and I count them as a reward for not killing the Ice Witch after the last email, which we still have, just in case. As for the cousins, well, the toddler now has a little brother, and he loves hugging me. The older one just tells me I suck at Fortnite, and I have bad taste in anime. The kid likes Beyblade. He's the prince of bad taste. Throwing your things away is totally unwarranted. You're best off without people like that in your life. At least you have kept close to your cousins. Hopefully your uncle will see the light. I wouldn't count on it after this amount of time, though. First mistake. As soon as she made her first snarky remark, you didn't tell her to wait on the doorstep until your mother returned, and then shut the door in her face. Second mistake. You didn't install locks on the inside and outside of your bedroom door so it could be locked from either direction. With a lock, no need to put anything in the garage.